Very good. There it is. Fantastic. Okay. Good, thank you. Hi, what is your name? Like, as in
Does everyone have at least somebody in your family grouping where you're at have one of these? If you need another copy, I can send more. Well, thanks for being flexible this morning and joining in this double class, combined class. My friend Barrett is here. He was here last night, and he'll be preaching this morning and then back this afternoon to just guide us in his years of being a parent, but also in ministry and working with teenagers for a long time and families. Anyway, so he's written some resources, but also he speaks now. That's what he does, him and his wife, as they travel around. And so his wife isn't here this morning, but she'll be here later on. Her name is Jennifer. They were with us last night as we did a little marriage enrichment night and had dinner together. So thank you for being here this morning. I think you're going to be encouraged with what he has to share with us here in the Sunday school hour, but also in worship. And this afternoon, he'll be back from 3 to 5:30 doing a couple more specifically family and parenting sessions with us, just to encourage us while he's here and share with us what the Lord has laid on his heart and given him experience through. So Barrett, to come join us, and let me pray for us, and then we'll get rolling. Father, thank you so much for this morning. Thank you for the opportunity we have to be here in this place, to worship you, to learn more about you. Lord, help us as parents and families in the room hear what the Lord has to say to us through Barrett this morning. God, thank you for this time together. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Am I on, gentlemen? Yeah, sounds great. Good morning, everybody. How are we? I'm over on this side. You folks in the cheap seats over there, if you want to come closer over here, great. Stay there, no problem for me. I love it. It's all good. How is this social distance masking thing going? Are we loving it every bit? Just exciting? I hate it. It's awful. It's the worst thing ever. Glass is fogging up all the time. It's killing me. Absolutely killing me. Well, I'm glad you're here. Unique little Bible study hour. Who are the Bible study teachers in the room? Who usually teaches a lesson this morning? Sometimes you guys love it when there's a sub because you get a week off. Sometimes you hate it because I was in the middle of something and I'm throwing off your mojo. Are we good? All right, fantastic, good. I'm curious who's in the room. Let me introduce myself to you, and then I want you to introduce yourself to me real quick. I have screen slides up here. And Chris, back, can these be up there, or does that not work? Or I can see them too? Is that okay? Does that happen? I can look around a lot, see what y'all are seeing here. It's helpful to me. No worries, I'm good. I'll just turn around a lot. One time I was turning around, I was teaching somebody, a group of people on the stage, my wife and I, and they had like cameras on us and like us on screens behind us, which it seems very highfalutin. We don't do that much. But I looked around and saw on the screen the back of my head, and I didn't realize how bald I was getting. And I was like, is that my head? So I need to cover that up or go see the hair club for men or something. I don't know. This is us. We have a ministry called Imperfect Normal Families Only. If you were with us last night, we kind of did this introduction, but Imperfect Normal Families Only, it's an acronym, INFO. Our website is Info for Families. Info, Imperfect Normal Families Only. You get it? It took me like 5 minutes to come up with that. So just recognize that we're all imperfect. We're all a bit broken. None of us has a clue what we're doing. So don't in any way think this morning in Bible study or in worship or this afternoon if you come back for some of our sessions that the guy up on stage has got it all figured out. I'm seeking God just like you are, saying, God, this world is broken, my family's broken, my marriage doesn't always work like I want it to, my kids don't behave like I want them to all the time. It drives me nuts, but God, help, lead me, guide me, show me. So we're all figuring this out together. This is my bunch here. This picture was taken a couple years ago at my daughter's wedding. That's Emily, the redhead with the flowers. She was marrying Lucas, the dude in the orangey, tobacco-colored suit there. We had a party for the wedding. They eloped, actually. We married 2 kids off. Our oldest 2 are married. This number 3 got married. They decided to elope, just go off, have a quiet, private wedding. His family's kind of dysfunctional. They didn't want the drama of it all. They said, we're going to go elope and go to Palm Springs and get married. And we had done 2 weddings for our kids, big weddings. And we're like, you have our blessing. Go do that. Knock yourself out. Don't have to plan a wedding? Beautiful. But we had a big party when they got back around a poolside. We kind of had a Palm Springs, Frank Sinatra 60s style party. So our hair's all goofed up and everything else. But that's our clan. Do I have a laser? I do have a laser pointer. This is my wife, Jennifer. You'll meet her later on. Lindsay's our oldest, and she's married to Christian. They have 3 kids. Landon's married to Cal. They just had twins about 7 months ago. And then Emily and Lucas just gave birth back in December to their first baby. So we have 3 new granddaughters at our neck of the woods, which is a thrill. Drew is a junior in college, and then Maddie Kate, we adopted her later in life. And so she's just 13. So we have 6 grandchildren and a 13-year-old. And I know what you're thinking. Barrett, you're too young and good looking to be a grandfather of 6 kids. I know. I get that all the time. But hopefully we'll be okay. That's my clan in there. Who are y'all? I want to know something about y'all's family. Who's got kids at home? Anybody? All right, who do you have at home? Anybody got somebody in diapers at home? Diapers, okay. Who's got like an older preschooler at home? Okay. Who's got elementary age kid? Okay. Who's got a middle schooler at home? A couple of y'all. Who's got a high schooler at home? Okay, anybody got somebody you've launched? You've launched somebody. Fantastic. God bless. Isn't it the most glorious thing on the planet? When you launch them and they struggle, it's hard. You help. The launching process is not you graduated high school, you went to college, yay, we're done. It's this ongoing process. But hopefully you get the sense of, okay, they've got a trajectory of their life and they're going to be okay. That's a glorious thing. I've heard folks who launched their last one. Anybody empty nesters completely, like you're home alone, anybody? Okay, is it as awesome as I predict it's going to be? I want to be you when I grow up. I look forward to that. With 4 that are older, 3 that are married, 1 in college, and then our little 13-year-old that we adopted. There are some hard days that we have that we say, if we would not adopted, we'd be empty nesters right now. And we go, oh. And we go, Jesus, no, you've called us to this. We're good. We got it. But there's moments like that change our lives. Anywho, what I want to do for the next, how much time do we have, Ryan? We got to be done at 9:45-ish. That's a good target. All right. I'm going to blitzkrieg through about an hour and 10 minutes of content in 40 minutes. So we're going to be rapid fire. If you haven't noticed yet, I talk really fast, so a lot of content to cover. I took some of the content we typically do in this session and cut it out and bumped it to this afternoon, talking a lot about technology and the impact of smartphones and the way our kids learn and think and process and are exposed to information. We're going to cover a whole lot of that this afternoon. So if you've got a kid that either has one of these bad boys or is going to one day have one of these guys, then I encourage you to come back this afternoon because this has been an absolute game changer in our kids' lives, in all of our lives. But we're going to talk about that this afternoon at 3:30 some. So I cut that out of this morning, talk more about just sex. So isn't that fun? You came to church Sunday morning, in Bible study, Sunday school, and we're going to talk about sexuality. Does that happen very often in this church? Does your pastor step into this world ever? It's difficult for a pastor from the pulpit on a Sunday morning to deal with issues of human sexuality, just simply because it's a place you've got children, you've got teenagers, you've got all ages, all backgrounds. It's hard to do that. But I think as I scan the room, we are all adults in the room, and we're going to be okay to unpack some of this stuff. So here's what we're going to do. Let me see if my clicker works. It's frozen up on me, Chris. Hello, Chris. Is it working? Who's up there? Chris, my little clicker broke. Do we have PowerPoint somewhere? There it is. All right, my thing got out of alignment. Great, getting comfortable about sex. That's what we're going to do today. So this comes out of a ministry my wife and I developed over 9 years at our home church in Atlanta, Georgia. Atlanta's home for us. We're native Texans. I went to Texas A&M originally. I went to school when Arkansas beat Texas A&M last night in basketball. Anybody watch that game? I could care less that we lost because I don't care about A&M basketball. We're terrible. Y'all deserve to win. God bless you. I'm happy for you guys. But Texas is our home. That's where we live and everything else. But we live in Atlanta now, served on staff at a large church for about 9 years. And we did what we call marriage workshops for 9 years. We would put 15 or 20 engaged couples in a room together over a weekend and coach them on what married life's going to be like. And we took probably 500 or 600 couples through this workshop. And what's amazing, through those workshops, we got to know these young couples. We invited them into our church. They started coming to Bible study classes. It was a great way to get folks plugged into discipleship and community in our church. We love that ministry. But what we discovered with these young couples, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years into married life, they were already struggling in the area of their sexuality. And what we learned is, this is a picture of my wife with a bunch of girls that she coached in one of our marriage prep workshops. As we get close to these girls and the young men, we discovered that a year into their marriage, a season when I would think a year into marriage, 2 educated, employed, a lot of money, living the dream, newlyweds, that's a season, in my opinion, you should be swinging from the proverbial chandeliers. If you know what I'm talking about. Do you want me to draw pictures? Are we okay? Are you with me? And yet, these couples are struggling. He's got an addiction to pornography that he brought in from his teenage years. She has been programmed by her mama, her good Christian mama, all her life. Sex is bad, sex is bad. Don't have sex. Boys are gross. They're going to give you germs, you'll get you disease, you'll get pregnant. Sex is bad, 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 bad. And then on her wedding day, she walks down an aisle, she says her vows, she has a reception, she heads off for a honeymoon, her mom whispers in her ear, okay, sex is good now, it's fun, have a great time. and these young women can't turn the corner. So let me just start off with a little basic fundamental statement. Sex, your sexuality, human sexuality is an incredible, glorious, beautiful gift from God. It is created by our God for our good. Heads up, Beyonce, Prince, they did not invent sex. Okay? It was God's idea long before Beyonce's or Prince's idea. All right? But here's the reality. What God designed for our good, and which should be the source of some of our greatest joy and connection and satisfaction in life, the thing that should make us go, God, you are glorious to be praised, thank you for this gift, is in many of our lives a source of our greatest pain, shame, brokenness, hurt, frustration. And if we experience that in our lives as adults, you can bet that our young people are experiencing big time. And so all of these young people that we minister to over the years would say, I've got brokenness and I can't function, I can't do what God wants me to do and experience what God wants me to experience now because of what happened to me when I was a young person. The habits I developed, the beliefs I developed. So because of that, that's the longest introduction in history. Because of that, you and I as parents have got to step in and help our children, help our teenagers, help our young adults launch into adulthood with a God-focused view of their sexuality. And that's what we're going to talk about for the next 35 minutes. Rapid fire. I'm sorry we're going to go fast. But you got a little yellow note page. If you didn't get one when you came in, Ryan's got some for you back there. Hopefully you got a thing to take notes on and fill in some blanks. So here's what we're going to do. Now, here is quickly a longer introduction here. As a family minister at a large church in Atlanta for 9 years, I had parents come to me all the time with their struggles. They would say things like, hey, my son, we just found the internet history, and for the last year and a half, he's been looking at the most unbelievable pornography. As a 7th grader, an 8th grader. Or my 8th grade daughter is caught up in all the drama of being boy crazy, and all of her girlfriends have got who they like and who they're going to like and that kind of stuff. My son is maybe thinking he should be a woman and not a man. And I mean, all these weird things coming to me with, my kids are dealing with this stuff. What do I do? They ask me. And what I want to tell them to do is something I can't tell them to do. Because here's what I want to tell them to do. I want to tell them to get a DeLorean and get some plutonium and build a flux capacitor and go back in time to when your kids are 5, 6, 7, 8 years old and young and developing, and start equipping them and training them to have a God-centered biblical view of their sexuality. So when they get to 7th grade, 9th grade, 12th grade, and are having emotions and experiences and desires and feelings, they know how to filter and drive them. So we've got to start young. So what we're going to cover today is a lot of content. I can't believe we're going to do this all in 35 minutes, but it's a lot of content that's critical for us to know and understand. But if you think, well, I've got a 5-year-old, it doesn't matter to me. No. Parents of 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds are in a strategic place to begin thinking through, how is this stuff going to impact my kid as they develop? How do I keep my kid from turning into that 25-year-old newlywed who's got a twisted, dark, biblical view of their sexuality, and they struggle? We wrote a book called The Talks. That's kind of our manifesto book, The Talks. And it's called The Talks for a reason. Everyone knows about the talk, but we believe it's a series of talks all through life, all through developmental years. That book is fundamentally what we do. And what I was going to say about that, I have no idea. The first line of that book is this. It's a creepy, weird-sounding line. I want my kids to have great sex. That sounds really strange and weird. But the reality is that God made each of my kids, each of your kids, as sexual beings. And that He designed them to experience the gift of their sexuality. And again, in God's timing and in God's way, under a covenant marriage, I want them to experience God's gift. And yet so many things in our world are designed to help them screw that up. We've got to be intentional to help them. Let's place some content and fill in some blanks. So get a pen out. Whose job is it to help your kids navigate this hypersexual culture? What's the answer? Can we get somebody? Parents' job. Write that down. Parents. It's parents' job. It's your job. Schools are going to do some work. It's probably not the work we want them to do. The church, a youth ministry. I'm going to get a bottle of water here, friends. Youth ministry might kind of equip with a biblical view, great, but they're designed to supplement and help what moms and dads are doing. It's your job as parents. So if anything, in the next 35 minutes we're walking through this, I want you to feel some sense of ownership of this responsibility and be committed to stepping into it. So let's have some conversations. Let's get ready to have conversations and prepare our hearts for what is to come. Number one, you got to have your child's heart. If you're going to step into a conversation with your kids about human sexuality, modern, the things that our world sees, the way our world thinks, which is so twisted and so wrong, how the enemy has hijacked this thing that God meant for our good, we've got to have their hearts. And we're going to talk some more about this afternoon. How do you get your child's heart? How do you turn that child's heart back towards Jesus? How do you move them towards a connection? But the reality is you cannot influence your kids unless you have a heart relationship with them. And that's extraordinarily easy when our kids are young. As a dad, particularly my daughters, I want to influence my daughters. But boy, they were easy. When Maddie right now, she's 13, my youngest. She's right at the cusp of where she still likes being with me, still wants me to tuck her in at night. But that's going to slowly transition to where dad's a freak. You know, dad wears socks and sandals every day, and it's just strange. And I don't want, Dad, you embarrass me. I'm hearing more of that. And so when they're young, it's easy to have our kids' hearts. It gets harder as they move into adolescence. And so we've got to work hard to have our children's hearts. So if right now you think, yeah, maybe feel the burden to help equip my kids to have these conversations and to step into a biblical view of how they see and encounter the world around them, and you don't have your child or your teenager's heart, then you need to work hard to capture it. And you know if you have your kid's heart or not. You know if there's an intimate, close relationship. You know if they listen to you. You know if they hear you. Hey, here's a quick little tidbit here. Teenagers, how do you know if you have your kid's heart, your teenager's heart? Here's the litmus test. Let's say your 15-year-old son is about to do something stupid on Friday night, something unwise that he knows he shouldn't do. Drink alcohol, for example. Let me just throw that example out there. One of two thoughts will go through his mind when he's considering doing that thing. The first thought might be this: if I do this and my parents find out, they're going to kill me. That's one possibility, right? Second possibility is this: if I do this and my parents find out, it'll kill them. See the difference? One is worried about consequences, punishment, grounding, whatever. The other is worried about, this will kill my parents. This will break their hearts. You want the second of those two things. You want your kids to think, I want to do the right thing because I value the heart relationship, the close relationship I have with mom and dad. Give that some thought. You got to have your child's heart. Number two, stop making excuses why not to have these conversations. Stop making excuses. Now, what are some excuses we can give for not stepping into this stuff? Here's a couple possibilities. Number one, nobody modeled it for you. Your parents didn't lead well. And probably did a show of hands, whose parents did an extraordinary job of equipping you to navigate your own sexuality, your feelings, your growth, your development, your interaction with the opposite sex, your moving towards marriage. If we did a show of hands, probably 3 hands would go up in the room. My parents did a great job of this. Most of our parents did crummy jobs. And it's not because our parents were crummy. It's just they didn't have the resources and tools to have these conversations. We weren't having this conversation at church back in 1985 when most of our parents were raising us. And so again, we've got some growth. No one modeled it for you. It's a lame excuse. We've got to still step into this. Number two, you feel like a hypocrite. How about that one? I did some really stupid things regarding what God designed for me to experience my sexuality growing up, developmentally, pre-marriage, whatever. I really don't feel like I'm justified stepping into helping my kids because I was such a failure. There's a lot of theology or beliefs on what a generational sin is the Bible talks about. A lot of different possibilities. But certainly one example of a generational sin is sin in your life, that because of the brokenness there, and you're not allowing God to put you back together again, that you don't help your kids navigate this with wisdom, and your kids end up doing the same exact things. That's generational sin. And so even if you had brokenness and screwed this up, say, God, redeem, rebuild, restore, help me, help my kids to not make the same mistakes that I did. Let God join you in that. Third thing is you're afraid to freak your kids out. Quick question. When you fill in the blank things at church, you try to guess what the word in the blank is before it comes? I do. Did anybody guess freak there? I like the word freak. That's a fun word, freak. You're afraid to freak your kids out. I don't want to tell my kids about stuff because they'll freak out. Hey, heads up. When you first have your birds and bees talk with your young people, your children, when you talk to your kids about masturbation, I said masturbation in church. Is that okay? We cool? All right, good. When you talk to your kids about these things, it's going to freak them out. You got to be okay with that. You've got to be okay with that because the world out there is going to eat their lunch unless we equip our kids to know what they're going to experience, what they're going to see. So again, you got to get past that. The technological dimensions of modern sexuality overwhelm you. All the stuff related to technology and pornography and what our kids find on their phones. Certainly, that is a big deal. We're going to cover a lot of that this afternoon. Hope you come back. And then finally, your current sex life is a mess. And this is where I get in your business as adults real quick. If there are single people in the room, you can, check out. It's fine. But honestly, single people as well, you've got to recognize you got to honor God with your sexuality right now as a single person, obviously. But there are married people in the room right now. When I say sex is a glorious, beautiful gift from God who loves you very much, you go, meh, meh, meh. You're not buying it. And I would just say this, if that little last bullet point is true of you, that is not God's design for you. Whatever is bringing that about, get some help with that. We have an iPhone app, Info for Families. Go on your app store and look for our app. We have a couple talks on there that you can listen to about sex and marriage that are fantastic. Encourage you to make that a date night. Let's get in the car, honey, and drive somewhere and listen to this talk and make out in the car or something. I don't know. Do what you want to do. It's up to you. But anyway, get some help with that. Don't stay there. All right, number 3 thing is this: stop looking for an easy formula. The next little bit here, I'm not going to give you a 7 steps to raising a sexually pure, young adult through the developmental years. There's not a formula. And if Jennifer were here, my lovely wife, she would say this. She always says this when we teach this together. She says, God doesn't give us a formula for most anything. Do this, you get that. Boom, easy. Because if God gave us a formula for living the Christian life, I think I'd work the formula and I would never bother going to Jesus. I think teaching some of this stuff and opening some of this stuff with our kids and guiding them through this world requires us to have our faces before God saying, God, I don't know what to do. Help me. Show me. Lead me. Give me stuff that I don't have to be able to help my kids navigate this crazy world that they're encountering. There's not a formula for that. There is a God, lead me. Talk to me. And that puts us exactly where God wants us to be, on our faces before him, seeking his leadership and direction. So again, no formulas, just some guidance. All right, let's talk about a couple key things on your heading. I think the first birds and bees, and whether you've had the talk with your kids already or you're going to have that with a kid coming up, let me just give you some principles to guide you moving through. First up, here's a little video clip from the Addams Family. This is funny. Can you crank the volume up there, Chris? Where babies come from? Is this going to work here? I think it's rolling. Let's see. I don't hear any audio. Is there audio? Come on. Work. Maybe our video is not going to work. Not that important. There it is. Yeah, crank it up. This is funny.
And then Mommy kissed Daddy, and the angel told the stork, and the stork flew down from heaven and left a diamond under a leaf in the cabbage patch, and the diamond turned into a baby.
Our parents are having a baby, too. They had sex.
All right. The little girl gives the truth there. A lot more blunt. Yeah. Don't tell your kid the first part there. That was stupid. All right. Here's some principles for having the birds and bees talk. When you open your kids' eyes to this basic reality. Dads talk to sons, moms talk to daughters. That's in a perfect world. If you have a dad that's disengaged or a mom that's disengaged and you have to step in with your different gender kid, that's okay. But in a perfect world, dads need to lead this and moms need to lead with daughters. And so it's just a good thought there. Make it a part of a coming-of-age event. This is something we learned at our house that we did, and it proved itself to be extraordinary over 5 kids. Now, make it a part of an event. I'm not saying have a barbecue and a pool party in the backyard and invite all your friends over. No. Not what I'm talking about. But we made a point to, when our kids turned about 9, 10 years old, and this is 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years old was the age. I think for the birds and bees talk, parents, I think 10 years old for most of our kids is too late. Okay? And I'm shocking some of you right now. I've taught this before, and a parent said, I've got a 13-year-old, we haven't had the birds and bees talk. And I said, you've got some work to do very quickly. I think 10 is probably a little bit too late. If you've homeschooled your kids or they're sheltered and whatever, then maybe 10's the right age, but I think 8 and 9 is a little bit better to kind of start having this conversation, which again, I know freaks you out. But with our kids, I took the boys and Jennifer took the girls when they turned about 10 on a plane trip somewhere. They got on a plane and me and my son flew to Colorado. And we hung out in Colorado for a 4 or 5 day weekend. And we mountain biked and we whitewater rafted and all kinds of manly man things. In the course of that, every evening we'd have a conversation about what it means to be a godly man. And one of those conversations was rooted in, hey, this is something that every young man needs to know. And we stepped into the birds and bees talk. This is where babies come from, and stepped into all that. So again, make it something that's a milestone. Now, your kid's not going to remember everything you share there. If you ask our kids right now in their 20s, hey, do you remember what happened then? No, not really. but it got the conversation started, and it was a foundational starting place for that, okay? Keep it age appropriate. Don't share stuff that's confusing over their head. You don't have to explain every detail of human sexuality to a 9 or 10-year-old. You're starting a conversation with some fundamental, basic things. Next thing is be positive. Granted, being positive is hard with your kids because they don't see it as positive when you first explain to a young person, a child, where babies come from. I mean, I can remember all those, my kids, eyes as big as saucers. You do what? One kid, a friend of mine said, his kid said, I could have gone my whole life and never having heard that and been just fine. My son, one of my kids, my boys, when I kind of explained this where babies come from and said, so you and mom have to do that to make a baby. Yeah. So you and mom have done that 4 times? I'm like, yeah, give or take. Maybe it'll round up a little bit. I don't know. But be positive. You explain to your kid, this is a glorious, beautiful, wonderful thing to connect with someone that you love in marriage. So it's a gift from God. They're not going to believe you, but you got to tell them that anyway. Keep it positive. Keep it positive over and over and over again. And then take advantage of resources. There are plenty of great resources out there that our parents didn't have. Our book, The Talks, is a great tool, but there's also some, in the back of our book, there's some great suggested resources to look at that follow up a little further. Take advantage of resources. They're out there. And then one more thing, gear up for more conversations. Again, our book is The Talks. You got to get comfortable with having these conversations. And one of our goals with our kids, one of the principles to drive you, mom and dad, is you want your kids to hear about something from you before they hear from somewhere else. Which means you got to do a lot of preemptive early stuff. You got to have a whole lot of early conversations with things. When we wrote our book, The Talks, the original working title was Sooner. Because they answer the question, when do you talk about this stuff with your kids? Sooner than you think you need to. And we changed the title. It would have sold like gangbusters in Oklahoma, but everywhere else probably not so much. But again, get there early is the goal. Lots of conversations. All right. Let's pause for 2 minutes just for fun. Related to this or your experiences, any questions or comments? Anything that worked well for you or didn't work well for you? Any thoughts? I want to just park it here for a second. And we'll cover a whole lot of Q&A this afternoon if you want to kind of percolate on that and come back to it this afternoon. All right, cool. Let's keep going. All right. Eventually our kids are going to date, be in relationships, start kind of partnering up with the opposite sex, which is a healthy, beautiful, good thing. But when are they ready to date? When can we give our kids permission to start being in a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship? Because the rules have changed completely, how dating works. When Jennifer's grandmother died in Amarillo, Texas, 8 years ago, we were cleaning out her house and came across something of my mother-in-law when she was a teenager in the 50s, early 60s. And it was what she called the date diary. It was this book that was called The Date Diary. It had a little picture of a girl and a boy. And she would journal all of her dates in this book. It was a hoot looking at my mother-in-law, I'll tell you what. But it was hilarious because Friday night, May 5th, went to a movie with Bobby. Saturday night, May 13th, went and got a Coke with Jimmy. Tuesday night, met Ronnie after school for whatever. A different guy every night, every weekend. Now today, we'd have some choice words for my mother-in-law. Okay? But back then, it was very common. I'll date you tonight. I'll date you next week. And it was dating, which I think was also a pretty awesome way to do it back in the day. But today, one date, suddenly you're a relationship and you're Facebook official, and suddenly it's suddenly a thing where you're suddenly partnered together and connected in a way, which fast-tracks things very, very quickly for our young people. So regarding dating, we got to look at some serious fundamental questions to get rolling, like this. Questions. What's the purpose of dating? As parents trying to guide your kids entering relationships, boyfriend-girlfriend relationships, what is the purpose of dating? Look, just for fun, what do you think the purpose of dating is? Somebody shout something out. What's the purpose of dating? To find compatible for a mate. Okay, good. Anything else? Purpose of dating. Say? To have fun. These masks are killing me. I can't hear anybody. Just to have fun. Whatever else. Great. These are all purpose of dating. Now, ultimately, I think those are side benefits. The purpose of dating is to find a mate. That's the ultimate goal. Compatibility. Who do I have fun with? Whatever. Who do I enjoy? Yes. But you got to ask that question. And if you know the answer to that question, the purpose of dating, then it will drive when you can start dating. Unfortunately, there's data in our book that research I found that chronicles compares the age you first started dating with who lost their virginity by graduation of high school. Folks who start dating at 13, about 70% of them lose their virginity by graduating high school. Dating at 14, that's 50%. Dating at 15, it drops down. So just a recommendation to parents, if we can delay dating, it's probably a good thing because our kids probably don't have the maturity to enter relationships the way we want them to enter. They'll be self-centered, stupid relationships that are not for their good. There's a guy named Mark Driscoll, a pastor, who I don't believe in everything he says, but I love what Mark says in this area. He said, he was asked a question at a kind of a Q&A thing. If I am not ready for marriage, am I too young to date? And his answer was, yes. Now, again, I don't fully agree with that completely, but I like his thinking. He said, all right, so you come to me as a man and say, you know what, your daughter is 17 years old. I'm not ready for marriage. I'm not interested in marriage. I have no intention to marry, but I'd just like to take your daughter on some dates, enter a relationship with her, get connected emotionally, and probably cross some sexual boundaries with her, and then give her back to you when I'm done. Is that okay with you, Dad? Probably not for me as a dad, okay? What's the purpose of dating? Is it towards marriage? Great, then maybe we should slow it down just a little bit. So again, what age? And that's a great age question to ask. What age are your kids be allowed to date? Now again, for us, our kids were allowed to go on a date like to a school dance as early as their freshman and sophomore year of high school. We were cool with that. But me as a dad, I stepped into a conversation with whoever was entering that date, my son or my daughter, and said, let me make clear, this is a date to a dance. This is not the beginning of a relationship. There will not be a second date. There will not be a boyfriend-girlfriend thing. If y'all want to go to this dance with friends, fantastic. We made it very clear on that. And there's a book that I love. Dads, if you have a daughter, a book by a guy named Dennis Rainey called Interviewing Your Daughter's Date, that if you have a teenage daughter, I would highly recommend you get your hands on. Interviewing Your Daughter's Date. You know what that book's about? It's about interviewing your daughter's date. Exactly what it says it is. And so every time a boy wanted to take my daughter to a dance, I would say, hey, great, let's make it clear. This is what it is. This is what it not is. This is what it not is? It's like Yoda there. This is what it is not. You're to keep your hands and your lips off my daughter. You guys are going as friends. I'm going to ask you to do a follow-up conversation after the date's over to make sure you've gotten in line with this. And likewise, my kids got older and began entering relationships at senior high school, freshman college, moving towards marriage even as young adults. I started having those conversations with the boys that were seriously dating and pursuing and courting my daughters with the potential of moving towards marriage. It's a lot of conversations to have along the way. That's I guess the point here. What circumstances we allow dating to happen is the final thing. I'm kind of stepping into that world. A date or a dance, nothing more, until my kids were older. But when they were older, my my friend Tom taught me this. He has 5 daughters. And he had conversations with all the boys that dated his daughters seriously. His sophomore in college daughter started a relationship with a boy that was a pretty serious relationship. And this dad sat down with this young man after they dated about a month and saw that they kind of were liking each other and said, hey, we like you, we think the world of you, but hey, I'm holding you more accountable for putting some sexual boundaries on this relationship than even my daughter is. This is him talking to this young man. And I've done this with my son-in-laws when they were dating my daughters. And here's what he said. He said, I'm holding you more accountable even than my daughter. Because here's what God's given you as a young man that he has not given my daughter when it comes to knowing when you've crossed sexual boundaries. God's given you a built-in barometer. And when that barometer begins to rise, you know you're crossing some sexual boundaries that you don't need to cross. Let me draw pictures? Are we good? Are we all right? We're good? Okay. And again, that's a weird conversation. But what I've discovered with most of these young men that have dated my daughters is when I had those conversations with them and hold them to a standard of accountability and purity and manhood and chivalry, which is rare in our culture today, those young men have typically rose into that and said, how can I be the right kind of man? Our young men are looking for leadership. They're looking for guidance. They're looking for help to know, looks to be the right kind of guys. I've got to keep on moving. I got a lot more to share, but let's keep on going here. My thing is not working. It freezes up. Why does it freeze up? Hey, some guidance. Help your kids understand the need for parental involvement. This conversation I'm talking about. We're going to be all up in your business as you begin dating relationships. We're going to know what you're doing. You're going to be at our house. You're going to be whatever. We're going to be all up in your business as you start to enter this relationship at whatever age you think is appropriate for your kids. Stay involved with your kids. They need that desperately. They may not welcome it, but they will appreciate it down the road, I promise, as you give them some guidance. Help your kids understand the principle of being equally yoked, and start teaching this when your kids are 5-year-olds. Principle of equally yoked. Don't be unequally yoked with unbelievers, is what the word says. And we told our kids early on, you're not going to go on one single date with someone who doesn't share our fundamental beliefs, values, our faith, all those different things. That's not one date. Because I've attended many weddings of my friends' kids who I saw a dad writing a $25,000 check to pay for a wedding, thinking to himself, this is not the man we thought our daughter would end up with. So we've raised her to be a follower of Jesus, and he doesn't care less about faith. But yet here they are getting married, and what choice do I have? Now, why does that happen? It's because they got engaged. Why did that happen? Because they dated for a couple of years. Why did that happen? It's because they went on a first date and started. One date easily turns into 2 dates, turns into 5, turns into a relationship, turns into we're moving towards marriage. You want to nip that in the bud? Make it because, hey, you're not going to go on one. Well, we're just friends. Doesn't matter. They don't share our fundamental beliefs. We're not going to enter a relationship with them at all. Start training your kids when they're 5, 6, 7 years old with that principle. Keep on going. Help your kids understand the reason for physical boundaries. Got a long day today. I'm already losing my voice. I've had 2 vocal cord surgeries in the last 10 years to fix my vocal cords, and it hasn't worked. So I'll talk quieter. Y'all hear me okay? We good? I'll just guard my voice. I get excited and get intense and get loud, and that's not good for me. Reason physical boundaries. When we just tell our kids, and probably I was told as a young person, don't have sex because you will get somebody pregnant or you'll catch a disease. That's the 2 big reasons. And those are reasonable, good reasons. But our kids can say, you know what, down at CVS for about $1.50, I can solve that problem. And it's true. Now again, this is not a perfect solution, but it's a solution that most of our kids pursue. Okay? So we got to have a better reason for sexual boundaries. And what I recommend is this, teaching our kids a chemistry lesson. A better reason for keeping yourself pure and guarding yourself sexually is a chemistry lesson. So we teach our kids about oxytocin. You ever heard of oxytocin? Oxytocin is an amazing little chemical that God put in each one of us. Scientists call it the bonding chemical. It's an actual physical chemical hormone in our bodies that creates emotional bonds with other people. It's secreted in our bodies that gives us a feeling of closeness and intimacy with somebody else. One of the places it happens is when a mom nurses a baby. When a mom has a baby at her breast and is nursing that baby, oxytocin is just flooding that mom's bloodstream and connects a mom with that baby. It's a beautiful thing that God designed. But the real place that oxytocin gets working is in sexual, physical contact. That's when oxytocin is crazy. That's the reason in a relationship, and the relationship may not be really a healthy relationship, but there's a physical sexual bond happening because it's a physical relationship, and it's hard to break up. Anybody have memories of that from their childhood or teenage years? I do. As a youth minister, work with teenagers, I'd see couples pairing up, and I'd look, this relationship is just, it's all drama, it's stupid, why are they even together? But they break up and get back together and break up and get together. It's because they've got this oxytocin bond that's bonded them. Now here's the reality of that. There's good news and bad news with oxytocin. Negative implication number 1 is that sex makes you stupid. Sexual intimacy makes you fall in love with and draw close to someone that you probably don't need to be with necessarily, but because of the sexual bond, you're tied together. It makes you stupid. It makes you make poor relationship decisions because sex is almost like a drug that keeps you coming back for more and more and more. And again, this could be sexual intimacy where there's, actual orgasm involved. I said orgasm in church, but you know what? God invented orgasms, so it's okay. Okay? But it can be just even something as benign as holding hands and, making out and just kissing. That intimacy causes that bond, and so it makes you bond together. Stupid. Negatification number 2, this thing's not working here. Oxytocin abuse can take its toll. The reality is the more you bond together over again, the less sticky factor it has. So example, I have this piece of tape right here. I'm stealing my tape here from the pew. A piece of tape has got adhesive on it, but if you stick this to something and peel it off, and do it again and peel it off and pick it over and over again, stick it and peel it off. Eventually, over time, this tape is going to lose its stickiness. And studies have shown that the more you connect with different people sexually and disconnect and connect with someone else sexually, that bonding power that God designed between a husband and wife loses its stickiness. One of the reasons we've given our life to this ministry and talking about these things that make you uncomfortable that I talk about just fine is studies that I've seen, and we document them in our book, The Talks, that show that the number one predictor of divorce in America today is not how old you are, how much money you have, what part of the country you live, your faith and your beliefs. It's not that. The number one predictor of divorce is how many previous sexual partners you had before you married. There's a strong correlation between number of previous sexual partners and the divorce rate. So someone who goes into marriage and you've had 5 or 6 previous sexual partners, I've had 5 or 6, divorce rate for that couple is off the chart. You show me a couple, though, that saves sex for marriage. And they get to an altar and they commit themselves to one another before God and before witnesses. And then they have their first sexual encounter with one another on their honeymoon. And yeah, it's going to be awkward and flumbly and weird and strange, but that's their first sexual experience. That's a bond that's going to be great. And the divorce rate for couples like that is low, very, very low. And so there's a correlation. So there's a reason for our kids to guard their sexuality. The reason is, I want their marriages to be successful down the road. I want to get married once and stay in that marriage. Now again, if you've had sexual brokenness in your life, if you look at your own marriage right now and think, well, yeah, I was really pretty frivolous and pretty careless sexually before I married, and now we're struggling, we're doomed. No. Can I remind you the beauty of the gospel? The cross says that all the brokenness, all the past, that God can restore that and heal that. It may take a little bit more work on your part to yield that part of your soul and your heart and your past to Jesus. But God's in the business of taking broken people and restoring them. He wants to do that in our lives. But boy, if we can help our kids to get this right for the sake of their marriages and their futures, then we should do that. That's why we got to keep on talking about this stuff. The third thing is this, that's kind of the aim for. It's a positive implication that oxytocin can powerfully bond a husband and wife. The fact that sex makes you stupid in a marriage, that's a glorious thing. It keeps me coming back. I'm stupid in love with my wife. Because of the bond that we've created. Emotionally, relationally, spiritually, yes, but also sexually. It's a unique thing that we share in the marriage bed that is our special, unique way of connecting. And it keeps us coming back. It bonds us together in a way that hardly anything else in God's design can. That's why God commands married couples. He's commanded you to be sexually intimate. It's not an optional thing. It's a command. Because he knows it's the fuel that will fuel forever a powerful relationship. Oh, forgive me, my voice. Let's zip through and talk about porn real quick. We've got 10 minutes to do this. And we'll cover this more this afternoon, some as well. But the pornography thing has changed everything. Pornography has fast-tracked in our world in just an amazing way. It's a game changer in our kids' culture. We've got to be willing to step into that area as well. So what's wrong with porn? I could make a list of about 7,000 things on this list. Let me give you a couple just key highlights. What is wrong with porn? It gives an unrealistic picture of sex. It gives unrealistic picture of sex. Heard say this, and I think it's true and it's hilarious, but I love it. Watching porn to learn about sex, which is what most of our kids do now. Where do you learn about sexuality? By watching porn. Most kids would tell you, teenagers, young adults. But watching porn to learn about sex is kind of like playing Nintendo Mario Kart to learn to drive a car. It's about that connected in reality. Which, by the way, if you don't know Nintendo Mario Kart, it's not good driving tips. It's not good at all. Unrealistic picture of sex. It's just comical, almost cartoon. Are you pushing my buttons up there? Or am I doing? I got no control up here. I think my thing's dead completely. I don't know what's happening here. It's highly addictive. Some folks say it's like a 1-2 punch of cocaine and heroin, one after the other. And as addictive as cocaine and heroin are, it's like building the same pathways in someone's brain, a user's brain, where it's like cocaine for a little bit, stimulant, excitement, heroin, if there's masturbation involved, which typically there is, that's why porn is created for us, or is out there. Again, it's that feeling, whatever else. And so it creates that addictive power in your life. Back to the addiction thing before we move on. An addiction. If Chap Clark of the Full Youth Institute, guy I've studied a lot, Chap Clark says that in his studies, he thinks about 60% of our teenage boys in America today are addicted to porn. 60%, 60. And that's not in the bad part of town, that's in your church. Look around the room, 60% of the teenage boys in this room on Sunday morning are addicted to porn. And the numbers for girls are rapidly catching up with that. It used to be a boy problem, it's becoming a girl problem as well. Because it's so accessible, it's so easy to get your hands on. And so if you told me that 60% of the kids in my neighborhood were addicted to meth, would I take that seriously? Heck yeah, we'd get a new neighborhood. But probably in the other neighborhood, the numbers are just the same. But if there was a meth addiction in our neighborhood at 60%, man, we'd have a drug dog as a family pet. Be sniffing my kids all day long. You know, we'd have random urine tests every weekend. You know, I take that very seriously. Parents, we got to take this seriously as well because it's undermining our healthy view of sexuality for our kids. Frequent self-gratification can mess with one's body. And I hate to get into this dark world of having this conversation on Sunday morning. It's probably not what you signed up for this Sunday. But studies show and statistics show that it's messing with our bodies, a whole generation of young people. 4 years ago, Time magazine had a cover story on this issue. And they said one of the number one subscribed users of Viagra and Cialis right now is young men in their 20s. Young men in their 20s taking Viagra because they've been so overstimulated by what they see on a screen that they can't function sexually with a real-life person. Because the real-life person that they are interested in, that they're attracted to, can't give them the same buzz or arousal that porn can. They've so oversaturated their brain that they're taking Viagra just to function. It's just nuts what it's doing to a whole generation of young people. And again, these young people that we've counseled as newlyweds and walked through life with and tried to disciple, to hear their stories of brokenness, it just crushes me, and I don't want that to be my kids. Fourth thing, it undermines the marital connection, and this is probably the biggest one that troubles me the most. Let me explain that. Obviously, it causes hurt and pain and lack of trust, obviously, but think about even how God made sex to work in marriage. I'll just be blunt with you. I'll make a confession. I like having sex with my wife. As a man who loves his girl, I just enjoy that. But I know with my girl, the wife that God has given me, I need to pursue her heart to make that happen. I need to love her and romance her and press into her heart, to connect with her heart emotionally, to make that an accessible thing to me. It's a part of the process of me pressing into my wife's heart and meeting her needs emotionally to make this thing that we both enjoy happen. It motivates me. But so many of our young people, young men particularly, have gotten programmed by porn through their teenage and young adult years, pre-marriage, that they have learned about sex, that sex just happens. The girl is always interested. She's easy. She requires absolutely nothing of me. And so these young men that we have coached, they've learned sex is easy. They marry a girl, a real-life human being, that sex is a little bit more challenging. And too many of these young men are going back to what's easy because it's just not worth the effort. They're lazy. They're lazy, lazy men. I want to train my young men. I want to train my boys not to be lazy, not to feed themselves a diet of garbage that makes them lazy when it comes to pursuing the heart of a woman and being chivalrous and being honorable and loving and pursuing and courting the woman that he loves. And not be caught up in this twisted version of sexuality that is just so user-generated, just so whatever I want when I want it, self-centered idea, which is exactly what our young people are being programmed right now with porn. So we've got to take it very seriously because it undermines what God meant to be good. So what do we do about it? Here's some things you can do to step into this space. Equip your kids from an early age. From day one, when I had the birds and bees talk with my boys, immediately after I was talking about, hey, by the way, son, regarding sex, there's a whole big, ginormous, and profitable industry showing people doing this. It's out there. And it's not if you see it, it's when you see it. You're going to stumble onto it. And I want you to have opinion about it. If you have young children, elementary, even older preschool age, there's a great book we love called Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. It's like a little storybook you open up and read with your kids. Great way to equip them about the dangers of porn and what to do when they see it. Because if you don't prepare them for it in advance, they're going to be exposed to it and be curious and go deeper perhaps. And those images that even a child puts in their mind stay with them. And by the way, the average age of first-time exposure to porn is about 10 or 11 years old. And here's the deal, guys. Back in my day, when I was a young person, and probably some of you old guys in the room can relate to this, first-time exposure to porn was someone having a dirty magazine at their house somewhere. First-time exposure to porn today is video of graphic sexual experiences. Video. That's the platform today. 10, 11 years old. Our kids are being bombarded by this stuff. And again, even comparing myself to our kids today, I confess, when I was a teenager, I wanted to look at porn. I had a very acute interest in looking at porn. The problem was I just couldn't find any. Couldn't find any. It wasn't available. Our kids today, just know this. This is not a phone. This is a porn delivery system. You give me any one of your phones, within 8 seconds, I can pull up a porn video. Any one of your phones. It's there. If I would have had this as a 14-year-old kid, oh, goodness gracious. Can't imagine what I would have done. And that's our kids, unless we equip them from an early age to have an opinion about this stuff. A couple more things. Create appropriate safeguards. We believe strongly in filtering software, accountability software, things that manage what your kids see on their computers and on their screens. You need to have that in your home. Number 3, have frequent conversations. You got to talk about it, talk about it, talk about it, talk about it. It's one conversation when they're 10, a different when they're 12, 14, moving on through adulthood. And then finally, importantly, combat shame with love and acceptance. It's a guarantee that if your kid is looking at porn, they already feel a measure of shame about it. They feel a measure of guilt. That's why they hide it. And so don't bombard them or add to the shame. If you find out your kid's looking at something, don't load them up with, I can't believe you do this. We raised you better. How could you possibly? Don't do that. Have a conversation about it. Appropriate consequences. Lovingly point them to the cross. God loves you. We love you. We got to have a better way and get the help you need for that. Again, we got 4 minutes left here. Any questions about this issue? And we'll unpack it more this afternoon. I encourage you to come back. We'll delve in a little deeper about the technological piece and how we can kind of equip our kids. But this is a game changer, and it's affecting our kids, and you got to be stepping into this with your kids and equipping them big time. A few concluding thoughts. We'll finish with this. Parents must frame the conversation, not just react. And I said that earlier, getting there sooner than we think we need to have these conversations. Too many times parents are just responders. Our kids are exposed to something or see something or have a conversation, and we respond and go, yeah, but here's what God says. Let's frame the conversation, start early and start saying, kids, here's what God designed, here's what God says, here's what God gives us parameters for. Let's respond accordingly. So when you see this, that, or the other, you'll know what to do. Let's not respond. Because again, God created sex for our good. We got to have that. Don't teach us wrong about sex. Teach us right about it. Be positive, be positive, be positive. Be as positive as you can be. Your kids may not believe you when they're young. This is a good thing. But again, with my kids, son at 10 years old, I know this freaks you out. I know you think you want to have nothing to do with this. I promise you, you're going to want to be a part of this. Just trust me on this. May take a while for it to show up, but I promise you're going to want to be a part of this. It'll get there. Teach what's right about sex. You and your kids are going to make mistakes. Realize that. It's going to happen. You're going to struggle. You're going to do something wrong. Your kids are going to make mistakes. You made mistakes. It's a reality. We're not going to be perfect in this. We've got to keep on pressing forward, keep on doing our best to align with God. Because here, the final little brother here, knowing the grace of God always offers us a chance for a new, fresh start. And if anything, I'll conclude with this. I truly believe what God meant for our good. Here's what I believe. Let me say it this way. Those things that God makes the most beautiful and glorious and makes humanity praise a holy God and makes God look creative and wise, I think those are the very things that the enemy of our God allocates resources to screw up in our lives. I think the enemy in the pits of hell has a war room meeting with his top advisors and says, you know what? This sex thing makes God look really good. Let's put our best people on this to mess it up.